think that's where a lot of people go bad with a pup. They throw them in a pen and just throw feed to them every day. And to me, you got to make a connection with them. Some guys don't agree with me on that, but I think you got to have a good bond with a dog.
It's real simple, I think, with a pup, and a lot of people don't understand it. When a pup is ready to start, it will start. You can't force a pup to start, and you can't force a pup to treat. It has to do it on its own.
Hello and welcome to the Stark Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Clayton Stark. In today's episode of the podcast, I was sat down with Jason and Dani Duby, the people that just bought Full Cry magazine. I just wanted to first thank them for taking over and keeping this magazine alive. And the first issue of this magazine will actually be in October. And if you're hearing this before September 1st, make sure you get your subscriptions in. If you want to subscribe to this magazine, make sure you go to their Full Cry magazine website. You can also check out their Facebook and Instagram pages. And I'll actually be a writer for this magazine, so if you like my photography and want to see some stories that aren't really shown other places and see some of my writing, make sure you get a subscription through them because I'll be one of their writers, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it. And I don't get paid for this. This is just something I'm doing because I really want to see these magazines stick around. Like a lot of you out there, I was really sad to see the American Cooner and Full Cry magazines go away, but I'm really glad that they're keeping one of them. So just another big thank you to Jason and Dani for keeping this around because it had a really big impact on my life, looking at the pictures and reading it when I was a kid, and I'm sure it can still have that big impact later on. And I thank you for listening, and a big thank you to everyone out there on Patreon. I appreciate your support, but I won't hold you guys up any longer. Here's today's podcast. Do you just want to start off by introducing yourself?
Yeah, the 2-year-old might do it too because I hear him walking.
We tried to fill him up with snacks and Clifford the big red dog, but it appears that that's not good enough. He's on his way in.
Yeah, I understand.
You'll learn real quick with us. Like, there's usually a child or a dog that's mucking something up.
Yeah, I put my dogs up, and my kids, they nap at the same time pretty much every day. Luckily.
How old are your kids?
My son is 4. The middle daughter is just turned 2, and the youngest daughter is 4 months.
Oh, wow. You got a gaggle of them, too, huh?
Yep. And my son,
yeah, we have 4, so we can get rid of the 2 older ones, but the younger ones, everyone's like, no, you did this to yourself. You keep those ones.
Yeah. Yeah, my son just started preschool this last week, so his schedule's pretty set now. We got him kind of used to it, and he's getting into a good schedule. He gets done at 11, so usually right around 12 he's out.
And come home and take a nap.
Yeah, that's pretty much come home, eat some macaroni and cheese, and go to sleep.
Yeah.
I'm jealous of him sometimes.
Right? Living the best life.
Yeah.
All right, we put him back. We're both back here now. Sorry about
Hopefully.
Oh, it's no big deal. I'm with Jason and his wife, Dani. Jason, I guess you can start first. Tell us kind of who you are, where you're from and stuff, and get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, you bet. We're out of Oregon, the state. So we've been involved in hounds for quite a while now. We started off running down in California when we could still run bears, and we chased bears around with a good group of buddies of ours. Unfortunately, it got outlawed in 2012 before I could really have dogs that were worth anything. you know, they were all like early on training ages, and
yeah,
it's one of those things where we just tagged along a lot. We did a bunch of hunting down there, and then we got into some blue ticks and did some showing and did really well in the AKC confirmation ring. And, dogs just kind of took over our life. I had a back injury working for a car dealership that kind of ended a career there. So I had already started Plumtree Hound Supply as a side gig so that buddies and I could get good deals on stuff, basically is how it started. And then, all of a sudden one accident and I was down for, I'm going to say 2 years. I mean, pretty down, and didn't do much hunting at all. I got lucky and had a buddy, Kim Ray, that I'll be honest, he had a Dewey, so he couldn't drive, and I had a back injury, so I couldn't hike. So we spent a lot of hours in a truck together. We had a great time for several years and did a lot of hunting together. And then, it was just one of those things that we lost our bear hunting, so we switched over to varmint dogs and running gray fox and bobcats. And in the meantime, I ended up selling my company and went on to W Hunting Supply as their field rep and now customer relations director. Okay. So I've been involved in the hounds for quite a while, and at this point, it's pretty much every aspect between work and fun. It's all pretty much, in Steve's words, gone to the dogs. There's not much else in our life other than kids and family and dogs anymore.
Yeah, you don't need anything else. Anything else will just probably add more stress.
Yeah, that's what we're learning, man. Small circles and tight ships. It makes life a lot easier.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of how we got involved. We've just been doing whatever we can. And, now Full Cry Magazine, with that whole thing coming up for sale, it's been a whirlwind, wouldn't you say, honey?
Yeah, it's been not really what we expected we were going to grow up and do, but here we are.
Yeah. I'm glad. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but I'm glad.
That's Casey, if anybody's wondering. See, they've all heard my older boys on the podcast. That's the next up and comer right there.
I was just going to say, I'm glad someone stepped up and is keeping it going, because those magazines really influenced me a lot just growing up. And my whole family hunted forever with dogs, so I was around it anyways. But just the visual aspect of seeing the pictures and having something physical in your hands to read and look at, I think is important, because like for little kids, if they can't read, there's still good pictures to kind of pique their interest. And I know I had to have some of an impact on me based off what I'm doing with my life now. So just thinking of the people that the magazine reached back then, like it could still do that today with newer generations, and the older generations like it too, because that's what they've had their whole life. And if it's done right, where it's a more modern take on an old tradition, where it's interesting, and there's people are way more invested in the media landscape than they used to be. I think we've came a long ways. So I'm glad you guys took it over and they're keeping it going, because there's definitely a lot of interest in it, and it keeps people interested and involved.
Yeah, I was looking at some of these old 1980s magazines, and they used to put the distribution on it, and they had reach of 40,000 copies that they'd send out. And I'm like, that's crazy. Those were big numbers back then. Now we have social media.
Right. Yeah, it's
kind of weird. It's a weird time. And I told Dani, and I've told a bunch of buddies this, I don't sometimes timing is everything. It's been a lot of years since most people would consider Full Cry's heyday, but looking at the times we're in now, it's like I'm an old soul. I mean, I always have been. I grew up playing rhythm and blues, and it was always hot rods and records. I've just had a love for all things yesteryear. And I just think that right now is a very unique time, especially in the print magazine world, because, everybody will tell you it's dying that doesn't want to spend the money advertising in it. It's a very expensive place to do your advertising, and people are so bombarded with day to day. I mean, you get 500,000 updates on your socials every day. But it's like one of those things where what's old is new and what's new is exciting. So it's kind of like one of those things. I don't think 15 years ago this would have worked, even 10 years ago. But with Dani's vision and what we're going to be doing as far as blending the old with the new, it's just, we're really thankful and feel blessed that this was a great opportunity that came up in an inopportune time, and we just had to open our hearts up, and really we felt led to do this, and it's turning out to be something awesome, especially the outreach. Like you said, people learn to read on it. It'll make your heart stop. I will tell you, when your kid picks up an early issue of Full Cry, like I had a 2-year-old toting around a 1941 issue,
Yeah.
and it's like, holy crap, give me that before you break it.
Yeah. I will say, when I was a kid, that I never got into, like, because we have some back in the 30s and like old Cooners, like Dad's gotten
Right.
every magazine. Like my grandpa even had, like, so we have boxes and boxes of them. And I know when I was a kid, I'm sure it was like the early to mid 90s of the Cooner and Bloodlines. I would like take markers and crayons and color in them and stuff. And
Oh, yeah.
I know, I don't even want to know what like. I'm sure the early and mid 90s ones, I'm missing some because I'm sure I just butchered them, but you'll have that.
Yeah, it's crazy though, but it's like, what are you going to do? That right now, our kids' life is consumed with magazines. Like, if it's not W Hunting Supply, it's magazines. They're just fired up, and I don't know if they're understanding, because they're 7 and 5. I think they're starting to get it, but like they're slowly grasping the gravity of it as much as a kid can. That
Right.
this is a part of our history. When I hand them I'm showing them a 1939 volume 1 issue 1, and I'm like, guys, this is the first Hound Dog magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is it. Really, that one? And it's like, yes, this one. And
they couldn't get me to read anything when I was a kid, but Grandpa would have this, and that's the only thing I read. I learned to read on Full Cry magazine. I'm like, there's an entire generation of men in the South that O.L. Beckham was like, they're hooked on
right.
Yeah, that is true. And what's neat about those magazines too back then is like the competition hunting wasn't like everything back then. So there was articles and so many just like little pictures, like just small pictures with like individual stories. So like to me, that's interesting. You can go back and look throughout the years, and there's people that you've never heard of, or dogs that have been gone for 60, 70 years, but you can look back, and it's interesting. It's neat to see the pictures, and it's good historical data. And that, I mean, if we lose the magazines and if we don't keep supporting that, it's just going to go away, because when social media really picked up, like that part of history will be preserved from then on. But the stuff from like the late 2010s before that, like a lot of that wasn't documented on social media. So like that's all we have is the magazines. Right.
And it's in a limited group. I mean, the hound culture is such a cult culture that it's funny, like I go back to those Brave books that I found. Like, those were considered lost and just gone. Like, nobody could find them. What did I pay for that one? $400. It was ridiculous. Just to get one.
You paid $400 for a book?
Well, maybe. I mean, $4.
It was a series. There was multiple.
I went through a streak. I'm kind of a book snob. Like, I'm all about hound literature, so this really fell into place, because like, I will spend stupid money on hound books if I have it. But, then all of a sudden you just do a little digging, and 3 phone calls later, like, I'm buying cases of them because they've been sitting in a storage unit for 40 years or 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they had no idea. Like, they didn't realize it was a cult classic. And, that's kind of how I feel Full Cry is. I'll tell you, the movement behind it and the people and the support lately is just, it's humbling, man. Like, extremely humbling. And some of these stories are heart-wrenching that you hear, like that one lady, her dad was in a coma for 3 months, and she just said the only time he relaxed is if we read, so I'd bring his Full Cries in and just read to him in a coma, and all these stories of guys learning to read. And I think the big success in that is, like, the early Full Cry, as I'm learning, going back through all these, they were, like you said, they're stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're things that we can all relate to, whether we're chasing bears or coons or fox or whatever. The relation to what's happening and the emotion that came through was really, like, that's what we're trying to get back to.
Yeah.
There's going to be editorial pieces, and there's going to be interviews, and there's going to be updates, but really the heart of it is these reader submissions. And Dani, I haven't even read them. I'm going to have to read our magazine just so I know what's in it. Because she's been like hammering this out, and a lot of it is just stories.
Yeah.
And they're really good.
Well, I mean, and I think about like when you go on a hunting trip, like you all get around the campfire and you listen to the stories of, remember back then when we were on that road and this dog did that and blah, blah, blah. And those are like, I want that feel. I want that, like, you're settling down in front of a fire with a cup of coffee feel when you're reading some of these.
Yeah. I love hearing that, because that's what I try and do with what I do. And I do go with a lot of people that competition hunt, but it's pleasure hunting. That's all I've probably been in 4 or 5 casts in my life where I participated. If competition hunts didn't exist, I would still hunt 4 or 5 nights a week. Like that has been like one of the biggest parts of my life since I can remember. So that, to me, that's especially if you're going to have a magazine nowadays, that's how you're going to get people interested, because with social media, if you just want to see a picture of a dog on a bench with a trophy and know who won, you're going to know that immediately. And I mean, that's where that's going to be taken. I mean, you can still put that in the magazine and talk about it, but
they're going to see 10,000 pictures.
Yeah. But like the story of like what happened is where it's at. Like, not just, oh, here's the winner, or here's like the story behind the people and the dogs and like all the memories being made. Like, that's, to me, that's what is going to keep people interested or grow. And I think with like the magazines that did go away, woke people up a little bit. Like, if we don't do something and support like parts of our culture that we don't think, it's just going to go away. So I mean, if you want to keep this stuff around, you got to support it. Like, if you want hound hunting to stay around, you have to support it. If you have a business, advertise in the magazines. Like, just support one another. If you need something, and someone that has any sort of business that hound hunts, or they sell hound hunting supplies, even if it's more expensive, just go through them and support them, because if you don't, we're not going to have it anymore.
No, and that's the big thing. I mean, everybody wants to talk a big game, but when it comes down to putting your money where your mouth is, I mean, I know Dani and we've made a lot of sacrifices, and we've spent a lot of extra money to do business where we want to do business. I mean, and I'm not saying that as like part owner in a magazine and an owner of a hound supply. I'm not trying to like sales pitch that, but in general, like when we go buy our feed, I will tell you, there is a major chain store here in town that I do usually buy feed from, or did. But when you show up at the county fair and there's not a single animal bought by that company, I'll tell you what, you'll never get a dime of my money again as far as feed. Like, we're going to go to the people that were supporting our youth and our programs. And it's the same with the hounds. I mean, I'll say the podcast world is a really good example of that, though. I mean, think about how much this is all blown up. And I think a lot of us, even a majority, have taken the stance of the rising tide raises all ships. You know, we're all there to help each other, and we're all there to support each other. And it's created this really cool community within us too. So I'm with you. I mean, same with the socials, the YouTube channels and all that. It's all different forms of media, and the ones that are doing a good job and putting us out there in a way we should be seen, and not the picture some people want to paint. I mean, we need to support all of that.
Right. Because I mean, it's not a huge culture, but I've told a lot of people, and I think that if you love dogs and you like being around dogs, if you get to see a dog go do what it's bred to do and see how good of a time it has and how much fun it has, you're at least going to be open to it, if not fall in love with it.
Exactly. And that's I think our goal is, hopefully this magazine, it'll start reaching the fringe. You know, yes, we all want to read it because we're in this, but if we can get to a point where this is hitting that fringe market, and the ones that are, you know, they're going to be supporting us in the ballot box. And when it comes to supporting hunting, even my own kids, I say it all the time. I don't care if they hunt when they get older, but they are going to grow up with a respect for it, and they're going to always remember those times. I know that. So, I mean, that's the big thing, is if we can all unite, then we can start gravity's going to pull these guys in, and it's pretty hard to not enjoy seeing a working dog.
Well, yeah, and I think if you are a dog person in any way, like you might be a coon hunter, I might be a bear hunter, but we can all appreciate a dog that's purpose bred and what it does. And so, like, for me, even, bird hunting, or some of these terriers that go, when they're working, anything like that, I can appreciate what they're doing and why they're doing it. I mean, it may not be my thing, quote unquote, but I can still really enjoy going and watching that and seeing how they train versus we train, and how those dogs, their natural instincts are developed and things like that. So,
and that kind of goes along with just regionally where you grew up. Like, I don't bear hunt at all because bears don't live where I live. But if there were bear here, I guarantee you I would bear hunt. So, I mean, that's just, dogs are bred and people have a certain way of hunting, and it has a lot to do with where they live too.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's very relatable. You can go, I've traveled all over the country these past few years, and it doesn't matter who they are, if it's squirrel, coon, or whatever it is, like, if they are into dogs, I can relate to them and talk to them pretty well, and they're just the same.
And I can tell you how I got started in dogs. I mean, way before I ever owned one, was my memories of my great uncle Jim back in Michigan. We'd go back and visit with my dad every couple years, go spend a week. And man, there was always a Brittany or a lab or a beagle. There was always a squirrel dog kicking around somewhere. And it just provoked that thought. I don't know. Yeah, it was the untouchable for me at the time, because in my family, like, we didn't have that. We big game hunted, and we did, deer and elk, and we spot and stalk bear and things like that. But, it just kind of created this burning flame inside. And all of a sudden, at 20, I guess I was 20 when we got into it. Then it just it was like the last of the cycle, and now it's been just a never-ending last step as we keep going.
Yeah, I mean, and I started in dogs when I was in like 4th grade. My parents they actually got into St. Bernards, and so you would do like weight pole competitions, because they were originally bred like to move carts and to rescue people up in the Alps. And, so that's where I really started in dogs. 20 St. Bernards, you can feed a whole lot of hound dogs for what that takes, let me tell you.
Imagine. You said I could make it out. You said you want to get back to hunting, but it's been too hot.
Oh.
How hot has it been out there?
Oh, we had a week over 100.
Yeah,
and we're still high 90s.
Yeah, today it cooled off into the upper 80s. It's been around 100 and humid here too, so I haven't been out.
We don't get that humid, but like right now we got smoke. I mean, you can't see hardly at all with all these fires burning.
Yeah, that's we never have to deal with that here, but a couple months ago, those fires in Canada, it made it pretty smoky here, surprisingly.
Yeah, I don't doubt it, man. That was pretty wild stuff going on up there.
Mm-hmm.
Every year we joke, it's like we give our friends a bad time living in Tornado Alley, and they live in the flooding, and they're like, well, you guys put up with the fires every year, so you're no better.
Yeah, the only thing we have here is just snow, and it's nothing that bad. We'll get a snowstorm that'll have 8 to 12 inches once or twice a year, and it gets pretty cold. It'll get below 0, but that's about it.
Sounds horrible.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've learned this about me. I'm not a snow fan.
I don't mind it because no one else is either. So then I have all the woods completely to myself.
Right.
Only thing is, coons don't usually move too good during that either.
Yeah. You get a lot of layups out there in the wintertime?
Yeah, layups quite a bit. You have to have a dog with a good nose, that's for sure.
So that was my detriment, actually, when we were competition hunting, and we haven't done a lot of it. There's only there were 2 clubs here on the West Coast. Sorry. There's two clubs. There was one down out of like Oregon House, Northern California. And then there's the Mary's Peak Hound Club up in like Corvallis, Monmouth area. And we would travel. I mean, it was a minimum of a 5-hour drive to hunt. And it got to the point they were all mini slams. And even at that, we could only get 2 dogs to go on a cast sometimes.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to like, get a title on a dog. But I did get to learn a lot about it in a pretty awesome atmosphere with a really tight-knit group of guys.
I bet.
So, but a lot of those, I had 2 things working against me. One dog had a horrible mouth. We all joke about it. In fact, my buddy says, I'd cull that thing right now. Like, you get him out of your kennel. You don't be breeding that. Go get him to somebody that'll hunt him, and you need to move on your breeding program. But
you take him to field trials and he'd look so pretty, and he'd jump up on that tree and he looked like he should be on the cover of Full Cry, and then he'd open his mouth and everybody would just kind of look around like, what was that?
Yeah, it's like Mike Tyson, you know. He'd come in and he'd hammer, and he's just one of those dogs that it would get quieter the harder he tried.
Yeah.
Like he had barked out early on, it seemed like. And that was a real challenge. So he never got his title, even though he was the better dog by far. He never got a title. And then we got a night championship on one of his sons. But god dang, their big one was there was layups. They were going to find it. And they translated that into like our last year of bear hunting and on into the varmint dogs. When they were striking a track, they weren't necessarily striking a track. They were striking an animal. And if they had to go 200-300 yards to find it, they would and get it going. And I think that played a lot. I mean, that's the same kind of instinct. They'd just be running through and pull up treed on a den tree or, lay up or whatever. And they did that time and time. And which, I don't know, when you're learning the rules and how things work, that's an interesting situation to be in. You're like, how do you call this? I don't know what I'm doing.
Strike and tree at the same time.
Yeah, I learned that after I got beat the first time. But nobody tells you before.
Oh, no. No, they'll help you out once the time's expired.
Luckily, we did have some good guys there, Travis and Deepal. Like, we had some good groups of guys up there, and it was always fun. But man, it's different out here on the West Coast. So, really, the field trials are our big get-togethers. That's where you see people, and you just kind of make the pilgrimages. We all go to Elk Creek every year. That's the big one. And OUSDA, and I try to hit Idaho and some of these other field trials because that's kind of the lifeblood of the houndsmen out here as far as where we see each other and get a chance to swap dogs and stuff like that.
Speaking of that, Autumn Oaks is coming up. Do you have, I think some people are going to be there for you, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, so Ben Sheets has got a booth with Tree Talking Media, and he's got our subscription forms there, and he's got some stickers, and he's covering for us because
we can't make it.
We can't get there from Oregon that quick.
Yeah, that would be a long trip, especially with kids.
The kids aren't coming. No, that's a mom-dad trip.
Yeah,
that's what we've been talking about, even trying to get to Grand America, and next year Oaks is definitely on the list. But Ben he'll have our subscription forms. He'll be taking those there. He's got some cool stickers, and anybody that gets a sticker at Oaks, you're getting them before we do, because we don't even have one. We just had them shipped straight to Ben.
Yeah, well, you know what they look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look cool. So if somebody wants to send me one, I would like one too.
Yeah, I do like the way they look. I already planned on getting one for my dog box.
Well, you go tell them we told them to give you an extra one. You got to have one to level. Yeah.
All right. Speaking of those events too, it kind of reminded me of something I was going to say. We were talking earlier about like supporting the magazines and supporting the stuff that we want to stay around. I see a lot of people talk about how like a lot of these events don't have as many people attend as they used to. There's still a lot of people to go, but it's just nothing like it used to be. And I wish instead of people talking and saying stuff like that, they would go, invite people, tell people about it. If you really want to see these events grow or return to what they were back in the early 90s or mid 90s, around that era, then just make the trip and go, tell people about it, get the word out. If you got kids, take them to it. That's why I go to the events. Is Autumn Oaks, I go to that every year because when I've been going there, I'm 33 now, and I've probably been there for 30 years in a row now with my dad and family. Just stuff like that. Like if you take them, it's fun. It's a good time. It's like a mini vacation. And if you need to buy something, there's at like Autumn Oaks, every single business that you would want to support will have stuff there for sale. And if you need it, it will be there for sale and you can buy it.
Right. Yeah. Flea market. It's awesome to go through. I mean, for me, that was the first big hunt I went to, Autumn Oaks, and I met a lot of great people there and made a lot of great relationships that have lasted years now. And it's hard. Like, and I do a lot of, what is the deal as far as like attendance dropping and this and that? And I think, I think unintentionally we've isolated our own groups, and I just talked about this the other day with Josh over at Joy. It seems like there's this rift between the big game and the coon hunters and the varmint hunters and
the competition guys and the pleasure guys.
Yeah.
Like we all want to compartmentalize ourselves.
And I think by doing that, and social media being like, it's a great tool, but with every great tool, there's good responsibility too, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you don't use something right, things can go really bad. And I feel bad harping on these guys that, might be putting things up that aren't desirable, but maybe they don't know better. Like, to be honest with you, in the social media world, I would say that the encouragement versus discouragement ratio is a lot different. I can guarantee you different than the pages of Full Cry. Mm-hmm. Like, we have no interest in anything that's going to downplay any houndsman, any dogman. This is a gathering place for all of us, and it's supposed to remind us of our past and remind us of what we're doing and how we are that next step. And it's a weird transitional time right now. Look at you, like all of us. I mean, we're 37. You said you're 33. Yeah. Like, there's
Did you just tell my age out?
No, I said my age.
Yeah, that's his age. His age.
My age.
I think he said you're 23 is what he said.
Yeah. But, it's like there's this weird group of us that we really do hold this sport near and dear to our hearts. And we're at an age and a point in our lives where we understand the responsibility. Like, this is shifting to a huge responsibility, not just for us to have a successful business, but to be successful in promoting our traditions and our ways of life and our dogs, and just really start rewriting the narrative, which, like, I know it's more effective here on the West Coast. You guys are going to have a hard time losing coon hunting, like, it's a different culture, but you're talking about these guys in Maine when they were fighting to keep their bear hunting, or, when California lost it, lion hunting in Arizona. Like, there's a lot going on right now, and we need to showcase the things that are going to help us. And that's the main goal.
Well, I mean, and I think that splitting everybody can even be put down between the old guys and the new guys. And I feel like there's a lot of judgment sometimes from the older generation on how the younger generation puts things out. And then there's a lot of judgment vice versa of the younger generation saying, well, you're not even giving us a chance. You're stuck in your ways. And so that's been a big shift for me as I've been bringing in writers for Full Cry, is that I almost feel like it's a duty now to bring this younger generation into the next step. Like, we sit and judge people that put things on social media, and we're like, well, why would they, but that's the only outlet they've been given. Like, they've not been given anywhere else to put things. So, for me, let's give them a platform to talk also, and let them establish themselves in the magazine. So you're going to see a lot of younger writers in there than there have been the last few years.
Probably several years.
I put that in my letter from the editor. I'm like, guys, you got to give him a chance or else it will die. Is pretty much what it says.
Yeah. I hope you guys are enjoying this podcast. And this podcast wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for my sponsors and also the people on Patreon. So I just want to take a brief moment here to thank them. And if you're unfamiliar with Patreon, Patreon is a social media service. It's kind of like Facebook where you get a feed and you can view people's profiles. And I make exclusive content on there, videos, live videos, photography, and just updates. And if you want to reach me and communicate with me, you can do so on there. If you want early access to the podcast and early access to my videos, make sure you go check out my Patreon page. And if you're interested in joining my Patreon, you can go to www.patreon.com/starkoutdoors, or you can download the Patreon app and search Stark Outdoors, and you can be a subscriber on there. Another thing I do on there that I've started recently doing is you can go live on there, and you can actually invite people to go live with you. So if you ever wanted to go hunting with me, but we can't because we live so far apart, or if you have dogs of your own that you want to showcase, if you're a subscriber on Patreon, you can go live with me on there and we can go hunting together. And for all the new people on there and the longtime supporters on there, I just want to say thank you. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. If you're looking for some high quality hound and hunting gear, go to Conky's Outdoors Hound and Hunting Supply. Fall's right around the corner. If you need some new clothing, hoodies, t-shirts, hats, just about anything you could need, go to Coondog Wear. They have some great clothes and they're always adding new stuff. So if you're interested in some high quality clothing, go to coondogwear.com. For high quality kennel doors, go to gundoghousestore.com. If you're looking for some new coon hunting equipment, you can go to coonhuntersupply.com to get your razor hunting gear. If you're in the market for a new tracking system, you can check out Dogtra with the Dogtra Pathfinder and the Dogtra Pathfinder 2. I've used Dogtra tracking collars now for 3 years, and I don't see myself using anything else. They work great, very convenient, and if you follow me for any amount of time, you know I really care about my dogs and their safety, because they're not just dogs to me, they're members of the family. So if you want to put something on them you trust and know that'll work, I encourage you to check out Dogtra Tracking Systems, and if you're thinking about buying from Dogtra, you can use discount code STARK5 to save some money with your purchase. A lot of people ask me what light I use when I go hunting, and the light I use is the Big Dog Blitz. I have the Big Dog Genesis, the Big Dog Genesis Plus, and they're just coming out with a new Big Dog just in time for autumn oaks. So those are the lights that I use, and I've used Big Dog lights for about 13 years now, and the original Big Dog Genesis I bought about 13 years ago at Autumn Oaks, it still actually works, and that's the light my son uses when we go hunting. So if you're looking for a new light, I encourage you to check those out because they've never let me down, and I really like their product. And if you're going to buy a Big Dog light, you can use code STARK10 to save some money with your purchase as well. If you drive a diesel pickup truck, you know maintenance can be kind of expensive if you don't do it yourself. And if you do your maintenance yourself, you can check out Doc's Diesel. They sell filter maintenance kits shipped directly to your door. So if you drive a diesel truck and you check out some of their oil or filters or any of their products, go to docsdiesel.com and you can use code STARK10 to save some money with your purchase on there. I'd like to thank Bayou Legacy Game Calls with the Tree Shaker Coon Squaller. I've used this squaller for about 3 years. All original, still works great, makes them look every time. Another hunting supply company you can check out is Treacle Creek Kennels and Hunting Supply. So if you need some more coon hunting equipment, you can check those guys out too. If you're in the market for a really loud, accurate pup, and you've got a nice female, and you're looking for a stud to breed to, I would check out World Champion, Grand Night Champion, Platinum Champion, Davis's Rosedale Frogger. And Frogger's owned by Burchell Davis. He's located in Northwest Ohio. Another high quality stud dog you can check out is PKC Gold Champion, UKC Dual Grand Champion, Buck Creek Croson. And Croson's owned by Chuck Dunlap, and Chuck's located in Fraziesburg, Ohio. If you're interested in raising some blue tick pups, and you need a blue tick stud, you can check out Dual Grand Champion, PKC Silver Champion, Brockman's Blue Buzz. Our next stud dog is Project Apollo. Many of you heard of Apollo. He was a 2020 Autumn Oaks winner, National Grand Night winner. He's a 3-time Platinum Pro Sport champion, 2 times Platinum champion. Won way more than that, but that's just a few of his big accomplishments. He is owned by Will BK Keeling. So if you have a nice female you're looking to breed and get some good walker pups, I'd check him out. If you don't have a female but you're looking for pups, high quality pups that have a long history and lineage of winning over the years, I encourage you to check out Smith's Lone Pine Kennels. A lot of you have heard of them, and if you haven't heard of them, make sure you go to my YouTube channel and look up Randy Smith Lone Pine Kennels, because Randy has some of the best females in the country, and that'd be a great place to get a pup. So once again, just a big thank you to everyone that makes this possible, and now we'll get back to the interview. You got to get the youth involved in all of it. It's such a huge part of it. Growing up, that was just what I did my whole life. The aspect of getting involved, like that's one of my biggest things I want to do, is reach out to new people and try and figure out the best way to get. I don't care if they're 70 years old or a little kid. Just it's been so much happiness and so many great memories over the year that I would feel bad if I didn't try and get as many people involved as I could, because it's such a great family tradition that you can just take your kids out and go have a good time.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like, I wish I would have known my family was in hounds when I was a kid. You know, I had no idea until I had already gotten into dogs, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, your uncle here and your grandpa here, and it's like, well, where were you guys when I was like a little kid and fired up? Like, all I wanted to do was go see the hunting dogs out back. Like, I wasn't even able to go into the kennel, you know, and it was just like bred that spark. And I mean, I've transitioned that into my own kids. Colin still thinks it's great to pick up dog poop. Like, that's his greatest job. That's how he gets to be involved in, you know, getting them out hunting. And I love the fact when we go hunting with my buddy Brandon, you know, it's him and his wife and me and Dani and all our kids, and they've got 3 kids, and it's just like this big kid parade through the woods. Yeah. And like, you know, that birthday cat that we took the boys out for Connor's birthday, you know, it was so great because when we got there, they asked, like, are we going to shoot it? And we said, nope, we're not going to shoot this one. We know this cat. He's one of the last few kind of hanging out in here, and it's the last week of season or last month. Like, we're not going to shoot it. We're going to leave it. And there was not one argument, not one whining from all these kids there. They were just as happy to go and still talk about that hunt. And there was nothing killed. There was not, you know, it's wild that that's the kind of impressions that get left, where in the rest of the hunting world, like when I take my kids deer hunting, if we don't kill a deer, like, yeah, we had a good time, but you missed the goal.
Well, yeah.
Where with the dog, different.
Yeah, it's such a great thing because you can get the kids involved in the outdoors. It's great, healthy activity. Anyone can do it. It's outside. You can do it like here. You can do it year round if you want to go when it's hot, cold, whatever. You can just there's always something to do. You can take an old dog out. You can take a young dog out. There's just so many different things you can do to get them involved with it, and that's what the biggest thing I see that people that aren't familiar with it, they don't understand, is it has absolutely nothing to do with killing what's in the tree. Like, hate comments I get is like, oh, you have to have a dog to find a raccoon. It's like, no, believe me, if I wanted to just go kill raccoons where I live, I can just walk through the woods and I could get like 20 or 30 a night. If that was what I wanted to do, I wouldn't waste.
There's more efficient ways.
Yeah.
If you want to kill stuff.
I would not spend hours every week away from my family watching a dog, like a puppy, just stand in the woods and look at me, waiting on it just to mature and develop to where its instincts start kicking in. Like, there's so much work and frustration involved with starting dogs on your own and raising them from puppies and getting them to do what they're bred to do efficiently the way you want. It's like, if all you care about is, it's the same thing with big game hunting and deer hunting and stuff. If all you care about is the moment you pull the trigger, you're not going to stick around with it, because most of the time you spend out there, you're not killing stuff. You're waiting, you're learning. It's the process, and it's the people you're with. And to go back to what you said about like deer hunting, I mean, that it's great to get kids involved with stuff like that, but once again, you have to sit still and be quiet, and you're just looking at the same thing over and over and over again. And unless you have like a manicured deer farm where there's just deer everywhere for them to look at, like it's a zoo, most kids at a young age, they're not going to be super interested in that. So
no.
But you take a dog to the woods and you can talk, and you can, like when I take my son to the woods, we'll go walk. And if I find somewhere where there's been water laying and there's tracks, I'll teach him, okay, this is deer tracks, this is turkey tracks, this is a hickory nut, this is an acorn. You can go out and you can show them actual woodsmanship skills. And honestly, it makes you, like for me, it makes me a better deer hunter too, because I'm actually out in the woods scouting, looking at stuff. So, I mean, it's just, there's so many benefits of getting out there all the time. I mean, it keeps me sane. It keeps me happy. It's great family activity. And that's what I really hope happens in the next 20 years is with social media and all the digital media reaching such large amounts of people. that they see it for what it really is, because there's just a huge misconception behind people that, oh, we're just lazy, we have to have dogs hunt for. It's like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, lazy. If you were going to go spotlight them coons, let me ask you right now, would you walk the same path you're walking to a dog?
Yeah.
I guarantee not.
On your hands and knees through a briar patch 3 miles and then wading through waist deep water, or going out in December. Right.
You hit it on the head, man. Like, when it comes to, like, okay, as a hunter, as an outdoorsman, as a dad, like, the kids have made me a better sportsman. And, like, I'll say the one thing I regret at this age in my life is I'm not a better woodsman than I am. Like, I can run dogs. I enjoy it. We deer and elk hunt. You know, we turkey hunt. We do pretty much 12 months a year. There's something to be pursuing or catching in the river or something. But like you said, you know, you're pointing these things out because it's all the things that is hard-earned knowledge for us. Like, we've learned that and we want to help them out to the point, like, now, I mean, we go up, heck, we went up the other night just to go kind of check out a bear hunting spot that I thought had burned up. And there's a big dust bowl in the road. And all of a sudden the kids just jump out. And I didn't say a word, but they're like, Dad, there's a bobcat track right there. And I looked and I'm like, my God, there is a bobcat track right there.
When we were hunting in January, there's an early season, well, I guess it's late season, I don't know which way it goes, elk season in that same area we were hunting, right? And there's this 2 people and they're elk, right? And we stopped because we had all the dogs, and we're waiting to see which way they were let dogs out, right? And they're talking to Jason and they're talking to Brandon, and all of a sudden Colin walks up, and he's 6 at the time. He's 6 at the time. There, he's like, "What are you looking for?" And they're like, "Elk." And he looks and he says, "Oh, there's an elk track right back there." And they just chuckle and they move on. And so I'm like, "Okay, Colin, let me see this elk track."
We checked it out. We trusted him.
What are you talking about? I'm like, I don't know, because he's just so casual. He's like, "Well, they're right there. There's the elk." And I go look, and sure shit, the kid was right. There was elk right there. Those people kept blowing by. They couldn't even get out of their truck to go check the track.
Oh yeah, that herd had been through there within the last probably 6-7 hours.
I'm like, should we flag these people down and tell them? Nah, that's their problem. No. If they didn't believe him.
Yeah, well,
but they learn that.
Yeah,
they learn all of that.
That's stuff you can't learn sitting inside of a heated box blind 2 weeks out of the year. That's why you've got to get the kids in the woods and show them. And it's different every time of year too. Like, you can take them out, like in the springtime, you can show them how to shed hunt and find antlers. You can take them out and show them how to find morel mushrooms. You can take them out in the wintertime and show them, like, when you're hunting, how different the tracking conditions are. Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, there's just every time of year there's something different. Or when it's hot in the summertime, where's the water at? That's where the game's going to be. Like, there's just so much stuff that they can learn that will benefit them down the road, that if you're not getting them out there more than just to go sit in a stand, like, you're missing out on a lot. I mean, that's a lot of good memories and experiences you should be having with your kids.
And you can't teach that. Like, we've all learned it, whether it was passed down, but I mean, until you see it, you can explain anything you want to your kid, but when you put them in the woods and they can see it and start, like, making their own connections in their brains, like, for me, like, the super proud moments when your kids start talking about, "Oh, there's no feed in here, Dad, we should go look somewhere else." Yeah, we should, buddy. You're 100% right. Let's get out of here. You know, or like, "Oh, you know, they look like they're trailing up the creek," you know. And it's just, it gets them involved in seeing the bits and pieces that if you're not there in the moment, you don't know. And right. I'd say my biggest downfall, and now it has to change, is I don't take pictures usually. And now I've been informed that I do have to go work for Full Cry some nights.
Yeah, I told him he has to look the part sometimes.
But my reasoning behind that is I've always just believed I can never show you a picture that is going to fully encompass what just happened.
Yeah.
Or places I've woke up on these hunts where it's like you've just hunted all night and you park your truck and you wake up in the landscape and where you're at and just everything around you. You can't explain that in a picture, but I think that translates to these kids. Like, a picture's worth 1,000 words, but a single experience is a lifetime of knowledge.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, if
so
Yeah, if they don't have that, I mean, how can we expect them in the long term to make good decisions, have healthy hobbies, or keep the sports going? If we don't do that, how can we blame the younger generations 30, 40
And
years
they're
from now?
out there. Those kids that are on fire are out there. I mean, and granted, so they've got parents that are giving them those opportunities. But I'll tell you right now, there's a kid who is under 14 years old right now that I would take to the woods with me anytime, and he's every bit of a dog man that most grown men are. And it's because he spent every hunting trip from the time he was born. I mean, I remember my buddy packing him into trees. I remember, him. He's always the one waiting for me because I'm slow. I got a bad back, so he's always waiting for me. Not letting me know he's waiting for me, but like, hey, you go ahead, Duby. I'm like, no, I'm gonna wait. No, you go ahead. So he's like always got to like be close, and he's just mindful of the values that we all carry. You look out for each other. You take care of your dog. You have to keep a cool head in situations, and to see that in a young man, like that is the driving force, I think, behind all of what we do, the magazine included now. Like, we're dealing with the past generation, we're dealing with our generation, our kids, and we hope that we have this thing going for their kids and their kids. This is something that we're looking at as a long-term, like, it needs to stay in some form or another. And I've said it, and I'm not trying to push people, I'm not begging for subscriptions here, but I am saying, like, if it's not supported, it can't survive. We still have a home and a life and a family. But if the people are there and hungry for this, we will continue to keep it going. And that's why we're focused so much on keeping the print magazine alive.
Well, and I think there's something that to be said there for what it's going to look like for our kids in 30 years. I mean, when we are posting these old magazines on social media, what we're bombarded with is, my grandpa was in that in the 70s, and I get messages, can you find this issue from the 80s? My dad wrote for it. I mean, can I say Mr. Fielder read the one from his dad the other day, and I'm like, listening, I'm like, is he choked up? Like, that is something that's gonna stick with our children 30, 40 years from now. Whereas social media, like, you're not going to be able to go back and see what your grandparents were doing and what your parents were doing. I mean, we're really writing our history for our kids the way that our grandparents have written the history for us.
Yeah, and that's the only way they're going to get it, is if we do it. The older generations are getting older, and they did a great job with what they did. That's why we're here and why we're doing this and talking about this, because we have something to talk about and to keep going, so that now it's kind of our job to step up and make sure that we do our part. So 40, 50 years from now, that there's younger generations doing what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Or at least, like I said, there's lots of people, I'm telling you, that are messaging and writing that they don't have dogs. They did, but they have fond memories, or they have memories of writing in the magazine. And, there hits an age where we can't chase these things through the woods anymore. Like, inevitably, that is a sad, sad day. But if this can keep them involved to some degree, and it can spark a new life, it's like, it's the whole circle of the houndsman life, I think. I think it's going to become a more, I don't know if I want to say valuable tool, but I think it's going to become even more relevant now than it ever has, because there's such a hunger. I mean, I'll give another example, and I really hope this comes through. I won't name names, but if you're listening, I really hope we can make this happen. He's, a buddy of mine has some articles that his father wrote for Full Cry years ago, back in like the 70s, 80s, 90s. And has since passed, and they were never submitted. So I'm really trying to work with him about doing like I guess a weird way, a father-son column. You write your pieces, these pieces from your dad, because those are the things, those are the messages we love hearing, like these personal connections to a magazine, when really it comes down to the people that made it. It's just a magazine. There's thousands of them out there. Why we're drawn to it is the people that are in it. And what they love and their passion that comes through.
I agree 100%. that's why the last 10 years or so, a lot of the coon hunting, especially magazines, have been a lot thinner than what they used to be. Is it turned into nothing but hunt results, and I'm not and, like not even stories. It was just who won what hunt, like
And you can get that off any internet page.
Yeah, and like I said, the results are important, but there's just so much to what we do that it's criminal not to talk about and show it. Like
Right.
what we do is so awesome, and there's so many great people and great dogs involved with it. We should be highlighting and showing the world what we do.
Right. No, that's exactly it. It should be, It'll be interesting to see how things develop. I know this when it comes to full cry, I'll tell you, I feel really like our hearts go out to everybody that was subscribers of Cooner, because that's no more. That shut down the same time full cry did, and it is not, I don't believe, coming back. I don't believe it was sold. And I know that was, the equivalent in the coonhound side of things to full cry.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is the challenge that we're facing, is we're taking a magazine that, thank God, the squirrel guys kept going. I mean, really, that's the only reason that magazine was still alive as long as it was just the squirrel and feist and cur dog guys.
Yep.
But the hard part is now we've got to take a magazine that was almost all one dog specific, and now we're trying to branch that out and get back to the big game and the coonhounds and the varmint dogs and any kind of tree dog.
Right.
So it's hard because you got to pay homage and respect to those guys that kept it going, and we fully intend on showcasing all dogs, all tree dogs. But there is going to be some changes, and I'm pleasantly surprised because Danny says there's a lot of big game submissions. So the big game guys that have been out of it for years and hungry, they're going to have a lot to chew on this first issue. And, same with Autumn Oaks and the coonhounds, we're trying to bring that aspect into more, and it's just going to be a work in progress, and we rely, just like Terry did, we rely on the readership and the stories coming in. But man, it seems like there's a lot of passion flowing through those pens. Guys are writing, and it's good stuff, man. Like, honestly, sitting down and reading some of them, it's like, this is exactly what we were wanting, because they can connect with anybody. I don't care if you're chasing coons. I guarantee this guy is talking about hunting lions or bears, the way that he tells the story and the story of the dogs and the process to get there. It's going to be really good.
But I will say it all depends on what gets submitted. Like, I'm not going to write 80 pages worth of material. So I had someone ask me yesterday, they're like, well, are you still going to have feist dog stuff? I'm like, if you submit good stuff, I'll print it. Like, I don't care whose it is. I'm trying to keep it, a third, but a third to big game, a third to coonhound, and a third to feist and cur dogs. But if you don't submit it, I can't print it. So If you want more coonhound stuff, submit good stories. If you want more feist stuff, submit good stories. If you want big game stuff, well, I have a lot of that. But
keep it coming.
Keep it coming.
But that's just it. We're really relying on those readers and getting the articles in there. So hopefully we will start seeing, that start to build back up, and we'll see a pretty even distribution. And some issues will be heavy. Like, I can tell you, going forward, like the squirrel dog guys won't be disappointed, or at least I hope they're not, because the quality of stuff is coming up, and I think that it's going to be at least an enjoyable read for everybody.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited. See it. So when?
Oh, we are too.
So I guess now we're at this point. You want to tell us when the first issue is going to be available?
Yeah. So the first issue is going to be coming out early October, and it'll be bi-monthly. So we'll have October, November, December, January, kind of the off months for most magazines, but we didn't feel like we should put it off any longer. So we took the first printing slot that we could get, and we want to keep the momentum behind this and not let people forget, because I feel like we live in a world where it's instant gratification, it's instant, acknowledgement, and we just forget things that happened a year ago, right? Like, it's not even relevant in our brain because we've been bombarded with so much constant social or, information input that we really, we've struck a chord with a lot of people about their personal ties to this magazine. So we didn't want to give it any longer for that to cool off, because the fire behind it right now is awesome. And people are really in tune with what we're trying to do. And our socials are doing well. We encourage everybody to go follow us on Facebook at Full Cry Mag, and then Instagram's Full Cry Mag. Facebook is Full Cry Magazine. And then the website itself is www.fullcrymag.com. But we're still open. I don't know when this is going to air for you, Clayton, but we're cutting off September 1st is our last cutoff date for October issue. So if you want to get in on the first issue, make sure that you're subscribed by September 1st, just to allow us time to get all of our records updated. And we've got to get this thing to print. So it's coming quickly.
Yeah.
This seems like the days are much shorter when you're trying to get everything done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll make sure it's up before then. It'll probably be tomorrow or Monday.
Oh, right on. Well, everybody go subscribe.
Yeah.
We'd appreciate it. Give us a year. If you don't like us after a year, we totally understand. We're not magazine editors, or I'm the ideas guy. That's been my title for the last 20 years. But, we do want to hear feedback, good and bad. And I'll tell you, there's a degree of bad I'm going to take. We're not going to give the time of day to somebody who's being disrespectful. But if you want to come to us with a respectful tone and at least just have a conversation, you guys out there have known the magazine longer than we have. And you guys are the readership. And that's the big thing for us. We want that input. Just contact us, email, Facebook, give us a call. However you want to get a hold of us. We do want to hear what you guys are thinking, and if we can come up with a solution and make this thing better, I mean, we're all game. We want it to be back to its glory days. I'd love to see 30,000 subscribers again. No, I got one more thing. I would just like to say thank you, Clayton, and thank you to all the guys out there that are involved in this hound world, especially in the media side. Everybody's been very supportive of this, and we do, I can't express how appreciative we are and how blessed we've been since this all happened. And it's guys like you that are really pumping life back into this, and it's a big, we're trying to stand tall in the shadows. We're trying to bring this thing to greatness again, and we really appreciate all your guys' support.
All right. Well, thank you for talking and doing this interview. I know that know you're really busy. Anytime you have kids, time is very very important, and then starting a magazine and at the same time is, I'm sure it gets pretty hectic.
Oh, it can, but man, it's a labor of love, and I'm sure we'll talk again. Hopefully we'll see you at one of these hunts here pretty soon.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
All right.
It was nice talking to you.
You too, Clayton.
All right. We'll see you both.
See ya.
Well, that was a great conversation, and I really enjoyed sitting down and talking with them. I'm really excited to get my next issue of the Full Cry magazine, and I hope you are too. But just want to say thank you guys for listening out there, and I'll talk to you next time.
He ended up treeing 7/10 of a mile. Had my light on coming in, and he had another coon, so turned him loose 3 times. He had 3 coons.